I believe it is. Hello, world. Greetings. How are you guys? Anybody out there? You don't see me? Says it's live. Vertical Hamburger finally made it. Hey, John. How are you? Good to see you guys. And can see, can hear. Thank you. That's extremely helpful. Appreciate that. Well, both of you guys are going to have I wish we had like some kind of helmets or something where we could be sitting in the same room, Zuckerberg style. Um, but anyway, thanks for being here and happy 6th of July, or yeah, 4th through 6th. I guess it was better for some people in some places than it was down here in Texas. I think it's raining right outside right here at this very moment. It really hasn't stopped raining the entire week, but that's extremely uninteresting, the weather. So, hey, John, how are you? Yeah, I'm safe. We're pretty far away from Kerrville up here in Austin, so we do get flooding here, but I appreciate the sentiment. Um, and it's good to see you. So, a couple of weeks ago, I was reading this thing about Orwell writing about vacation spots and how they were perceived in the press and by the public. So I got around to the point where he was talking about the music that gets played in these types of places. And he's writing this in 1946, which is a couple of years before he actually wrote 1948. I mean 1984, but you can tell how some of these things were already in his mind at the time. So he's talking about the kind of music that they would play in these vacation spots and what the result of that would be. The music prevents the conversation from becoming serious or even coherent, while the chatter of voices stops one from listening attentively to the music and thus prevents the onset of that dreaded thing, thought. 4, the lights must never go out, the music must always play, lest we should see where we are, lost in a haunted wood, children afraid of the dark, who have never been happy or good. It is difficult not to feel that the unconscious aim in the most typical modern pleasure resorts is a return to the womb. For there too, one was never alone, one never saw daylight, the temperature was always regulated, one did not have to worry about work or food, and one's thoughts, if any, were drowned by continuous rhythmic throbbing. So that's just another excerpt from the Orwell essay Pleasure Spots, published in the Tribune, January 11th, 1946. So if you want to just carry that over to today, I mean, there's literally not a place you can go where music is not playing. And I know a little bit of the history of that type of thing. It originated pretty much in Carnaby Street in London in the 60s in the Mary Quant boutique, where some of the girls were bored and they started to play music. And before they knew it, they had a party going, and then everybody on the street had to do it. And then now we have what's going on here, which is basically music getting played from large standing poles at whatever mall you go to. Anyway, we'll leave that there. Just like to say hi to everybody else who has joined in. Uh, John, and Dano, V Lamb, Ben Neild. Hey, Ben, how are you? Hope you're doing good. And I don't know if you guys saw my little suggestion for favorite movies of the 21st century. And I thought this might be kind of an interesting thing to talk about because as we're all getting older, Some of us, many of us, or none of us tend to get stuck at the point where art and culture was most uh, influencing us. And then you kind of tend to get sort of stuck in those places and more or less start to think, well, there's nothing good new coming out. And so I found myself thinking about the 21st century. And this was just kind of a succession from when I was thinking about music, because I was trying to think of what bands am I listening to now, modern bands, fresh bands. And I couldn't really think of any. And I thought, well, am I stuck or exactly what's happening? Because I don't actually really like to listen to music that I thought was fantastic as a teenager or even in my 20s anymore, as far as popular music anyway. On the other hand, symphonic music and classical music, there's so much of that that I find myself going deeper and deeper into it. Obviously, there's a much greater history available of that type of music. I mean, it pretty much goes back about 400 or 500 years at this point, the actual printing of music. So there's a lot more to discover. Um, if you liked Led Zeppelin, if you loved Led Zeppelin or Slayer or White Stripes or a variety of other bands, they have their collection of material. Usually it existed over 10 or 20 years, maybe 30, maybe longer. Um, and that's what that is. It's not necessarily open to interpretation because the recorded versions are, in fact, the definitive versions. Anyway, this led me to thinking about, well, are movies as great as they used to be? And so I just started to think about movies in the 21st century. And I thought, I'm just going to start writing down some movies I thought was pretty cool that we've been to see. And lo and behold, I came up with this big giant list here. And so I don't know if I should just give me some feedback, you guys. What?
Ask for a couple of theirs first.
Yeah, so before I read my list, why don't you guys just start throwing out movies that you've really liked over since the year 2000. We'll include the year 2000 and just start throwing some titles out there and let's see what we come up with. I was actually kind of surprised to realize that there's a couple of movies in my list that I consider stone cold classics. I mean, in 50 years, 100 years, I think these two movies that I picked out of this big list here.
Hey, John wants to know top top 10 or just throw out names.
Yeah, I think top 10 is too confining because I came up with almost a movie for every single year of the past 25 years. And I still left some out because my brain started going, oh, yeah, okay, he made that. He also made that. This other guy made this. So it was actually stimulating and surprising and a cool thing to do. So okay, John's in there first with Grizzly Man. And that is one of those movies I'd forgotten about. I was looking at Herzog movies and I was thinking about the Cave of Forgotten Dreams movie, which was the 3D movie where he went into the Lascaux caves, I think, in the south of France. And so, of course, I mean, Herzog is just, yeah, Grizzly Man is an outstanding movie. And um, I mean, like any Herzog movie, there's so many highlights in there, and just his voice comes into your mind. And one of the great lines from that is, of course, him with the headphones on going, "You must never listen to this. You must never listen to this."
Schiller says he wants to see the Caves of Forgotten Dreams in 3D, and
Yeah, we were actually really lucky because I think that was the year that
South by Southwest.
yeah, I think it was also the year that Jennifer did an animated short called Get with the Program that you can see on my channel. Just put Get with the Program in there. And so she got selected to be part of the animation program. And we were lucky because right after the animation screening, the screening of the animation program, I think Cave of Forgotten Dreams was showing within a couple of hours in 3D because it was part of that South by Southwest. So we went in there and saw it in 3D. Yes, it's awesome. And
Sorry.
what?
Hamburger says Anchorman 2.
Anchorman 2. Yes, that's, I mean, I'm ready to watch Anchorman 5 as opposed to any future Star Wars movie or Marvel movie. But yeah, we can only hope that there will be more. John Schuler says, Zone of Interest. Yeah, that's one on, I think that's one on our Netflix list right now. And of course, you've got to get in the mood for that. But yeah, I know I can already tell it's a great film. John says Battle Royale. Yep, Battle Royale is quite something, along with Suicide Club. I'm not sure if Suicide Club is in the 2000s or not, but
Anthony says Memento. That's a good one.
yep, Memento, of course. What year is that from? Is that like a 2001 movie? It seems like an early 2000s movie, but thinking about it and looking at my list, movies from the year 2000 to the year 2010 are just brutal. I mean, there's some stuff in there that's just um I will probably never watch again. And I don't know, it might be my taste is lightening up or something like that. But yeah, very, very brutal movies. Devolution SF says Beau is Afraid and The Champion. Actually, Beau is Afraid was one that was on my list. And I haven't seen The Champion, but my wife and I watched Beau is Afraid over 3 nights because incredibly, this movie is 3 hours long. It's actually longer than Lawrence of Arabia. And so we watched it in 3 goes, but I can't honestly imagine what it would be like to go to a large cinema and watch it in one go. I mean, it just, maybe one day I'll do that. But yeah, that is a challenging and a great example of a filmmaker that's in his 50s right now, Ari Aster, who of course made Midsummer, and what else did he make? Um, anyway, Midsummer is the one that I'm thinking of right now. But yeah, he's a filmmaker in his Hereditary. Yeah, he made Hereditary. Yeah, so Ari Aster is a guy who's basically 3 for 3, and I think he has a movie coming out called Eddington, which I will absolutely see in a movie theater because he's a great, you're going to get cool visuals and excellent acting when you watch one of his movies. So let's see, what's next?
Let's see.
Vertical,
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen Babadook. Vertical Hamburger says, I've never really given film the, I don't know, intent of discovery that I have with music. How do you go about watching film? Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, um, I kind of dig into the past, and I also read a lot of interviews with directors and cinematographers and things like that. And so they're always talking about the vast history of cinema and what is appealing to them. And so it's kind of like dominoes falling, I'm willing to check anything out that anybody says. But one of my recent explorations has been a lot of Lon Chaney silent films. Now, I'm talking about Lon Chaney Sr., who's actually the father of Lon Chaney Jr., of course, who famously played the Wolf Man and also played Lenny in Of Mice and Men. So Lon Chaney Sr., of course, is most famous for the Phantom of the Opera and the fact that he used to create all of his own makeup. But there's a bunch of amazing Lon Chaney films, silent Lon Chaney films that are in the public domain that you can check out. One that I can just recommend off the top of my head that you should watch immediately, and you can see it at archive.com or probably even here on YouTube, and it's called He Who Gets Slapped. And Lon Chaney is just an incredible actor. I can't believe there hasn't been a biopic of him. I think there was maybe a James Cagney movie in the 40s called Man of a Thousand Faces, but there really needs to be a uh, modern version of the life of Lon Chaney. I don't know, probably somebody like Sam Rockwell could do it or somebody like that. Anyway, uh,
About like 5 of your faves.
yeah, let me just finish going up where I'm going to check on what you guys are saying, and then I'm going to read out my first 5. Um, let's see, oh yeah, John mentioned Metallica, Some Kind of Monster. And yeah, that is a great 2000s movie. And I have a couple of degrees of separation from that whole bass player audition thing. I never got the call. I don't consider myself in the ballpark, but I think Scotty Reeder is in the movie auditioning. And so he's been an acquaintance of mine for some time. But I do love the ludicrousness of hiring a psychologist and then the psychologist starting to suggest song titles, and then it's kind of the perfect storm for a documentary. At first it seems like it's going to be boring, and then somebody leaves the band, and then somebody goes into rehab, and then at the end it's like, yay, Metallica wins, they triumph, and they all come out in suits with new haircuts. And yeah, it's a good thing. So just quickly, John says Nicholas winning Remp's first films. And yeah, I'll agree with that. He makes some really crazy stuff. And a friend of mine, a very old friend of mine, Cliff Martinez, has kind of become his go-to composer. And that is a great marriage. And of course, Cliff was Soderbergh's composer for years and years and did some iconic scores for him. So I'm going to read out my first 6 or 7 movies and see what you guys think of these. And these are not necessarily any of my favorite movies. Um, Maybe I own 1 or 2 of these, but there's certainly movies that kind of exhibit my taste towards film and kind of the sort of yardsticks that I judge great filmmaking by, which is production values, editing, sound, cinematography, and direction and acting. So, starting in the year 2000, I have the Mexican movie. And I think it's his first feature by Inarritu, called Amores Perros. And if none of you have seen that movie, I mean that is like the ultimate doggy movie, as I call it. And a funny story related to that is I'd moved back to El Paso at the time after living in London. And I was living with my parents at the time. And my mother likes to go to the movies. And she said, "Oh," and she's actually a big booster of the Humane Society in El Paso. And she just said, "Oh, well, would you want to go to the movies or something?" And I go, "Sure, you pick." And so she said, "Oh, well, I've been reading about this interesting Mexican film called Amores Perros, and would you like to go and see that?" I had no idea what this movie was about. And we went to the we went to watch the movie in the afternoon, and it was her and I in a multiplex with nobody else. And this movie started, and of course it starts with this just insane car chase with a dog that's been shot in the back of the car. And so the whole movie was just basically a torture test for her, because animals are just, I mean, it is a love story to dogs. And of course the name Amores Perros in Spanish kind of translates, it's Spanish vernacular for love is a bitch, more or less. That's what it means. Anyway, uh, so that was in 2000, 2001, Mulholland Drive. I don't really need to say anything about that movie. It speaks for itself. Um, in 2003, and this is kind of the beginning of one of these, like I was saying, I mean, the early 2000s just had these brutal movies, and a lot of them were made by French directors. And this is one of the first ones, called High Tension, and it's by this guy, Alexandre Aja. I think he went on to remake The Hills Have Eyes, which is, I think, also a pretty brutal remake. But this movie, High Tension, if you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out if you guys like that kind of stuff. And it's got a twist, and it's a big twist, and it's a crazy twist, and it is a very brutal movie. And of course, 2003, um, excuse me, Old Boy, the Park Chan-wook version. And I don't know if I need to say anything about Old Boy either, because that's absolutely amazing and insane movie. I mean, once you've seen it, it's stamped on your brain. A little bit of a lighter choice here for 2004, Hellboy, the Guillermo del Toro movie. And I do love Guillermo del Toro, and he's one of those guys who, um, production's always amazing, cinematography is always amazing. Pretty much everything about his movies is great. They're big fluffy entertainment movies to me, but I do like them. They're kind of guilty pleasure movies. 2004, I have a movie called Calvaire, which is another really insane French movie. And not to give too much away, it's basically about a guy who's a middle of the road magician, lounge singer guy in France, who has a little van, and he drives around from town to town entertaining seniors. And it's the old, your van breaks down in the middle of nowhere type of thing, and you get a ride from somebody, and then you're just on this parallel journey to where you thought you were going. So I recommend Calvaire also, because it's actually, they came up with a name for this, for a bunch of groups of movies in the early 2000s, these French movies, and they call them New French Extremity. And it's a whole thing, and it's become kind of scholarly, and people write books and articles about it, and why did it happen then. And they're absolutely insane, and I wouldn't recommend watching a whole bunch of them at once, but if you watch them and get pulled into them, I mean, they're challenging and insane, and maybe not even good to watch twice, but I'm recommending them as experiences. Uh, After Calvaire in 2006, Apocalypto, the Mel Gibson movie. And of course, unfortunately, this was kind of the end of Mel Gibson, because after that was when his drunken behavior was exposed to the public, and was deemed unforgivable on some level. And that's unfortunate, because I remember reading at the time after Apocalypto came out that he was actually planning or in pre-production for an original language Viking movie. So, just imagine that after watching Apocalypto, what we would have gotten with a Mel Gibson original language Viking movie. I mean, it just maybe it's still in the back of his head, so we can only hope that it is. Next one I'll list and then get back to you guys is 2006, No Country for Old Men. And so I'm considering that one of the classics of the early 21st century that is going to just, this is a flawless film. And that's I don't have anything more to say about it. It's perfect, it's flawless. The original material is flawless, and the execution is it's a perfect film, and this movie will always be new and great for anybody who looks at it in the future who hasn't seen it. So let's get back to you guys now.
Yeah. Well, Herbie says a movie from 1938, you can't take it with you. I don't think he realizes it's 21st century.
Oh, okay. You can't take it with you. Yeah, that is that is a great one, but we are just doing 21st century movies, in case you didn't get the memo. But yeah, so 21st century movies I just considered a little more challenging, because we don't have 100 years of the evolution of cinema. But anyway, thank you for that. And we could do one of these for each decade throughout cinema history. So anyway, let me go back a little bit. Yeah, French new wave of horror that lasted a few years. Inside and Martyrs were my favorites. Yeah, I mean, you can't, to go favorites on these movies is, I mean, Martyrs was another one on my list, but and the interesting thing about Martyrs is it's the only, usually if you get a DVD or a Blu-ray, sometimes the director will do an intro, to a remastered version or something. They'll give you like a little minute or two talking about the movie, and what their vision was, or their ethos, or whatever. And when I watched Martyrs, there was an introduction by the director. His name's Pascal Logier, I think, or something, part of New French Extremity or whatever. And in the intro, he actually apologizes for making the film. so, so that gives you some idea of exactly what's happening in that movie. I mean, it's brave filmmaking, and it's just operating on a level that's just it's operating on a wide variety of levels, but the really, really transcendental layer of it is not really something I've seen in a film before. So I recommend that with about a million caveats, but it's well done. And maybe I should apologize for even watching it. I'm not sure.
Some more. I Saw the Devil, a crazy crime, Korean crime flick.
Yes, I Saw the Devil. Yeah, the Koreans, there are we having like a moment of new Korean extremity? Because I mean, maybe it's just like a 20-year period. Because of course there's all those Park Chan-wook films that are crazy, and there's all the Vengeance series and all that stuff. And there's another Korean movie too called The Wailing, which is a really phenomenal movie. And that was crazy watch going to see that movie in the theater, because I think that one's about 2.5 hours long also. But if you guys haven't seen The Wailing, check that one out. Okay, Best in Show, John Schuler. Yeah, I mean, Christopher Guest and all that crew is just, those are great. And of course, Waiting for Guffman was shot in Lockhart, Texas, a lot of it, which is just maybe 50 miles from here. And it's also known as the barbecue capital of the United States. And one of my trips there recently, maybe a couple of years ago, was with Greg Anderson from Sun. And I took him out there and pointed to the building, and I go, "You know what that is?" And he was going, "Looks pretty familiar." And I go, that is where, you know, I think Corky had his office or whatever his name was. So the county seat building in Lockhart is the big famous building in Waiting for Guffman. But yes, Best in Show, absolutely. Um, Chopper. Yes, Chopper is an amazing film from 2000. Once again, I mean, the early 2000s, there was a lot of,
Off the 90s, like,
yeah,
or
yeah, and we also had all that 1999 stuff going on. Remember that Y2K, where it was just, this is the end because there's another zero. You know? So, um,
project. We've never seen that.
I haven't seen the Florida Project. I think that's it's in our Amazon list, actually. The Florida Project, is that Willem Dafoe? I think. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Okay, let's watch it tonight. Schuler says, yeah, Zach Parrish, Wailing is brutal. Yes, it is. It is. There's some movies you can't laugh in, even though weirdly, some of the filmmakers have to put laughs in those movies. So you actually feel a little bit awkward laughing in them because they're so, really just brutal. It's almost like comic relief in a way. Um, John says Dogtooth 2009. Yep, that's a great one. Yep, absolutely. Um, John says Memories of Murder. Haven't seen that one. Um, Not obscure, but The Witch. Yes, absolutely. I have The Witch on my list. And once again, I didn't have any kind of caveats or rules. These are strictly just movies that I remembered from the first 2 decades, first 25 years of the century. So I'm not going, are they my favorites? They're just movies that I thought were good movies. And so that's really the only kind of guardrails that I had for this. So I'm going to read a few more out. Um, so right after No Country for Old Men in 2007, There Will Be Blood. Once again, Paul Thomas Anderson, and this is another perfect movie. His films are perfect films, and I think that's a movie that also is going to be considered a classic, probably forever. It's everything about it is amazing, especially when you watch it on a big screen. It's got perfect pacing, perfect, great score by Johnny Greenwood. Um, Also in 2007, Eastern Promises by Cronenberg. And Eastern Promises has the dubious reputation of having the greatest naked man fight in a sauna ever. You can watch that movie and it's just it's super good. It's got Viggo Mortensen in it, maybe Naomi Watts, I'm not sure. But it's pretty much maybe the best Russian gangster movie made, at least by a Western filmmaker. I'm holding out hope that there might be a uh, Russian gangster movie made at some point that will equal that or be like more to the point. Maybe like a Russian prison movie or something like that. Um, After that, I have, yeah, it was a couple of French extremity movies. I've already spoken about Martyrs. Frontiers, that's another one that was directed by a guy, Xavier Gens. So if you haven't seen Frontiers, that's an amazing movie that's just right on the edge of what can be done possibly legally.
There's a lack of comic book movies and like Star Wars movies. So it makes me wonder if they're fans of those films or not.
Jennifer is just commenting that she's noticing a lack of comic book movies like Marvel DC Universe movies and also Star Wars movies. So I don't know if you guys are fans of that stuff. I'm not personally a fan of that, although as a child, I mean, the Adam West Batman to me was one of the most amazing things in the world as a child. And of course, Batman back then was not grim and serious. And one of the cool things that I got to do was actually meet Cesar Romero, who played the Joker in the original Batman. And I got to do that because I went to a party, uh, kind of an honoring type of, award thing with Lori. And it was going to be the first time I was going to meet her parents. Her mom was getting inducted into this old Hollywood theatrical society called the Maskers. And so a lot of people were there that made movies with her as a child. Cesar Romero was one of them. I thought that maybe there was even a picture of me with Cesar Romero at one point, but anyway, I digress. I did get to meet the original Joker, and I do like some of the Nolan Batman movies. They're sort of interesting, but I can't really get there with that stuff. I think they've gotten too serious about it somehow, and the backstory and the origin thing is it's just not that interesting to me personally. And I don't know, you guys might be older, so you might just be like, yeah, Star Wars now.
You should read some of their comments. They're kind of our crew because they're saying they're fun, but they don't really enjoy them a lot. They might watch one, but they're
Yeah,
not.
so just reading your comics, your comments, reading your comics, reading your comments. A good film is a good film. I love comic books, but comic book movies are too long for me. They are. It's like that was the thing about comics is you could blow through one in 10 minutes. I mean, they were awesome. Not a fan of the endless comic book movies. And Anthony Collins says, I don't think I've ever watched a Marvel type movie, never into comic book movies. I mean, we're all on the same page. I mean, that just means we're all old, right? I don't know. But my point in kind of putting this list together also was that there is still people out there making interesting stuff. These big, huge kind of tentpole blockbuster movies sort of suck all of the air out of the room for 3/4 of the year. And then the movies for grown-ups come out during award qualification time between the beginning of October and December, so they can all qualify for the Academy Awards or something. But I did read an article this morning um, in a British newspaper that actually said, "Why is Hollywood on uh, stuck on a loop and has nothing new to offer?" Well, I would have to disagree with that going through this entire list. And I mean, of course, there's always going to be stuff that is derivative, just like in music. There's nothing new under the sun, or is there? I'm making music. Nobody knows exactly what I'm doing right now. And it probably doesn't sound much like Metallica or even the Melvins, if I dare say. But the list that I came up with was made me feel like, yeah, there's people out there doing adventuresome and brave stuff. And more importantly, there's people at studios that are willing to support radical things like the aforementioned Beau is Afraid, which I think came out last year, or people like Aronofsky, um, or Ari Aster, or Robert Eggers. I mean, these guys are in their 50s, so hopefully we've got 30 more years of weirdness to look forward to from people like that. Cronenberg's in his 80s now. I think he's 82. And I just saw his latest movie called The Shrouds, and I recommend that. I think it's his most emotional movie at this point for a variety of reasons that I'll let you discover if you want to read about it. But watching it, I just went, yeah, Cronenberg is, this is really inspiring that there's somebody who hasn't made a comic book movie and has gone the entire length of time without doing so. And every one of his movies has taken you somewhere if you bother to watch it in a cinema, so
Take a break to go to a different topic for a second.
yeah, let's do it.
People are here and they're, people that seem to be in the same theme as us. You should ask them what kind of videos they would like to see you make YouTube.
Okay, so before we go back to the movie thing, Jennifer has a question for all of you. What kind of videos would you like to see coming from me on my channel, content wise? What would be interesting for you guys to watch, or are you just happy to have me go blah blah blah? I realize, of course, if I'm just going blah blah blah, you could be mowing the lawn or preparing suppers for your amazing families, or driving out of town or into town, or you could even be watching a movie that you don't care for and listening to me. Actually, that might be an interesting thing to do. I'm not sure how that could happen, but we could maybe figure out a way to have me do a commentary to a movie that's running. There might be a way to do that. It might have to be a out of copyright movie or whatever, but a what? Yeah, 1920s movie, yeah, something like that.
They said your music production workflow
Hmm.
be interesting.
Yeah, the music production workflow, John. I'm actually doing something on my Patreon page right now, and it's called The Process. I don't know if any of you guys out there, like, I'm not aware of exactly what your level of knowledge is about my solo work, but my second solo album is an album called The Value of Decay. Came out maybe 15 years ago, and during the recording of the album The Value of Decay, uh, I took a break in the middle of it because it was kind of an intensive thing to do. And during that break, the drummer that I'd hired to do the sessions, had him create 9 completely different drum tracks by himself. And I just kind of gave him suggestions and kind of steered him towards what I wanted him to do. And I never got to work on any of those drum tracks. And so now what I'm doing is I've gone back into those and I'm starting to work on those and kind of go through the process of how I'm setting up the drums. A lot of them came in out of sync. A lot of them were, at one point, there was 4 or 5 complete overdubbed overdubbed drum sets that needed to be synced. So there's a lot of technical stuff involved with it. But I am putting up uh, versions of the beginning of the process of making those tracks into songs, and there are things that have never been heard before. So somebody is kind of getting, anybody who's subscribing to that um, is kind of getting to see my process on that. I'm not really sure what level of that I might share on my YouTube channel, just because that is paid for those specific subscribers. But it is a good um, suggestion, and I will consider it. So thank you for that. John Schuler says favorite books. Yeah, well, that's a good one. I'm trying to suggest favorite books as I go through these live sessions. I'm trying to suggest a book and maybe a movie and also something to listen to. So I'm going to try and cover the three things. I think last time I did a book and a movie. It was White Heat by Cagney. I don't know how many of you did your homework and watched White Heat by Cagney, but you need to get on it because I'm not saying this for my own health. It's like I got to share the wealth on this stuff. Let's see. Corrosive interviews with your peers, perhaps. Yeah, I've been thinking that, and I've been thinking of a way to do that, how to do that, who to do that with. There would be a lot of, I have talked to people and actually asked them if they'd be interested in doing it, and people have said yes. So it's about me just
It's a good idea.
doing it and figuring it out. So I would hopefully have some surprises in the works for you that you might not necessarily assume. And yeah, it's something I have been thinking about. So I would like to do this. And there is a plan for that. So I think John said something about talking about uh, electric miles. Yes, I could do a whole thing about electric miles. I love Electric Miles Davis, and was fortunate enough to see Miles live a couple of times. It was in his comeback period in the early 80s. And one in particular, yeah, just twice. And I saw him at the Hollywood Bowl. And I think I saw the very second show that he did after he came out of retirement. I think he did one show at Avery Fisher in New York and then did the Hollywood Bowl show. And that was one of the best shows I ever went to. It was great. No opening act, and he just played for 2 hours. It was outrageously good. That was the Al Foster, I think Marcus Miller, Mike Stern um, band. Yeah. So let's see what else. Maybe more for Patreon. I remember mentioned a long version of the song Lacrimosa. Yes. That's all I can say is yes. So there's only so many minutes in a day, and I'm trying to cram stuff onto there. So let me go back to movies a little bit with continuing the list. And so let's see, I stopped at Martyrs. I'm going to 2009, Antichrist, Lars von Trier. So incidentally, Jennifer, my beloved wife, was a animator on a Lars von Trier film called Five Obstructions. So, but Antichrist is its own beast, obviously. And I have another Lars von Trier film on here from 2011, which is Melancholia, which is his movies are always, um, you know, he's got his own cinematic language, and it's amazing. 2010, Shutter Island by Scorsese, very pulpy, very Hitchcockian, and really good, a great watch. I mean, it shows how Martin Scorsese's just a fan of, those kind of pulpy sort of movies. He's got a great love for those things. Obviously, remade Cape Fear. But yeah, Shutter Island is a really great one. Great performance by DiCaprio in that. 2010, 13 Assassins. 2010, 13 Assassins. Takashi Miike, who also made Audition and Ichi the Killer. So pretty much anything Takashi Miike makes is strange and interesting and really weird. 2011, Kill List by Ben Wheatley, a British director. And if you guys haven't seen this movie Kill List, it's outrageously good and just one of those movies where when you finish watching it, you kind of walk out dazed from the cinema. Really good, kind of starts off one way, ends up another. And Ben Wheatley is a great director, really has an eye for cinematography and for editing and for material. And I've got another one of his on here too, which is called A Field in England, which is also another amazing film about the British Civil Wars in the 17th century. And that's a crazy film too. I recommend that one. Black and white and outrageously good. So make a note of Kill List and A Field in England. Next one, 2015, The Witch, which has already been mentioned. I mean, Robert Eggers made The Lighthouse, also incredibly good. I wasn't a huge fan of Nosferatu. I thought it was all right. For me, I'm still partial to the Herzog version, and of course the original version. Um, Next is Hateful Eight by Tarantino, 2015. I'm picking that one over the Kill Bill movies. I like the Kill Bill movies, but there's something about Hateful Eight that's just really enjoyable because it's almost like a method actor's practice session or something because it's just people in a room talking the majority of the movie. And I really like that. I like the way that it's just either this gigantic panoramic thing or it's people in a room. So I think that's a really cool juxtaposition that he came up with. And he did, I think he shot it in 70 mil. So we went and saw a 70 millimeter version of it, and that was great. That was a awesome watch. 2015 Fury Road, another one of those kind of guilty pleasure movies, but George Miller is amazing, and of course made the original Mad Max trilogy, and of course made the Babe movies, made Babe, and then made Pig in the City, which are two of the greatest uh, animal anthropomorphic films ever made. Um, if you haven't watched Babe or watched Pig in the City, and I think Pig in the City arguably has one of the greatest chase scenes ever in movies. And it's just got a chase scene between the pig and this bull terrier, and it's shot from the level of the animals and it's gigantic and it looks absolutely amazing. So I recommend those movies if you haven't seen them. And they're good for kids, but they're great for adults. And of course, in Pig in the City, you also get Mickey Rooney dressed as a clown doing an act to chimps, which is probably that's the only movie that's in. So you got to watch that.
Says, do you keep your opinions on film in any sort of database list, or is it just by memory?
No, this is just kind of in the old noggin here. Things just kind of get stamped on my brain that are impressive to me, and that goes for everything across the board. For some reason, I'm gifted and cursed with a photographic memory on some level, and then there's just great points of nothing in my brain. So where it's just kind of like, what is it like? See, there's one of those points of absolute nothingness. So yeah, Fury Road, perfect action movie. It is. It's a really good one. Memory and Letterboxed. Yeah, well, actually, I opened a Letterboxed uh, account today, and I'm on there under my name, Mark Dutram, and I've just started to fill it up. And so I don't know how much film critiquing I'm actually going to do in there, but I started in 1910 and 1920. And I'm going to work my way through the decades, just adding films out of my memory. And so for all of you who are interested, you can go to my brand new Letterboxed account and see what I put in there so far. Mainly it's silent films because like I said, I just started this and I spent about 20 minutes on there. And so I put in all the ones that I have watched for real and do like for real and own some of. So take a look at that.
It said Nosferatu 2024 and Under the Skin.
Yep. Yep. I did like some things about Nosferatu. I mean, it's not a complete washout, but I think just some of the hype. Um, I basically was looking forward to something a little more. I thought maybe it was going to be like a spin-off of there's a movie about the making of Nosferatu that has Malkovich as Pabst, and it has um, Willem Dafoe as Max Schreck. And so I thought it was maybe going to be more along those lines, even though that's kind of comedic. But I do like the film, but I think it was one of those ones that was overhyped. Um, I think he's making a werewolf movie now. So maybe, we'll see about the werewolf movie. Um, see what next. Shadow of the Vampire. Yes. Yes, that's a great movie. So that's another one that's kind of an interesting combination of horror and comedy, a little bit on the lighter side, and also a critique of method acting, which I do really like. The way that Max Schreck has to go actually live on the set. I think he did do that in real life. I think it's based on reality. So anyway, as far as movies are concerned, I'll be adding to that. And I guess it has a social aspect of it. So you can go on there and like me, we can be friends about movies, maybe. I don't know. At least until I put up a movie that everybody goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe you liked." What movie would it be? I don't know. What movie would it be? Solo. That would be the movie. That would be the okay, that's a movie too far. But I mean Pasolini, hey, we can't argue with Pasolini. We just can't. Um, okay, so I'm just gonna finish out my list here. Let's see, how long have we been going? Oh, we've been going almost an hour. Okay, so I've just got a few more on my list. Um, 2017 Mother, Aronofsky movie. I don't know what you guys think about that one, but that's another one where I felt kind of beat up after I watched it. And it is about mothers and it is about motherhood, and it's not quite as uh, challenging a movie about motherhood as Beau is Afraid, but it's another one of those mother movies like Psycho, or Throw Mama from the Train, I guess. Um, After that, I've got Mandy, which is Nicolas Cage. I mean, that's another one of those guilty pleasure movies. And really, uh, it's also one of those movies where the title sequence is so amazing that I didn't care. Basically, the movie did not come up to the title sequence because um, it's got that it's got that helicopter shot of the forest, and then it's got the King Crimson song, uh, playing over it, and that was outrageously great. I mean, you.
Says Randall Dunn did the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, I knew that Randall worked on that, and I think even Steven had a hand in some stuff that was going on with that. So that's a tale by itself that I have a slight insight to, but not enough to talk about here. So yeah, Randall, so but yeah, the opening to Mandy was just, I didn't care what happened afterwards, but yeah, Mother was like a nightmare, absolutely. And Corrosive Altars, Solo should be seen by anyone into reflection. I don't know if you mean Reflection, the movie, but yeah, Solo, I mean, based on the Pasolini book, based on the story, the novel 120 Days of Sodom, I could talk about that book for an hour. I mean, is it punk rock literature at its best, or the filthiest book ever written, as Desaad hoped it would be? A little bit blowing his own trumpet, as he did a lot. Anyway, check it out if you want to, if you can, if you can take it. Um, let's see, I'm not up on modern cinema at all, says Herbie Gray. Well, you should, I mean, check out some of these ones I'm talking about. And, you know, yeah, I mean, I thought I wasn't, but I surprisingly am, I guess. I guess it's just I'm a fan of filmmaking. And since I love so many great movies and so many great movies have been made, I'm I don't have a pessimistic viewpoint about filmmaking in the film industry, because especially now, I mean, people are going to find a way. You can buy a 4K camera, for $150 and start shooting your own 70 millimeter movie if you want to, and release it yourself on your own channel that YouTube gives you. So, I mean, if you want to do it the hard way and hope to get a deal, it's like making records now. I mean, you can make this stuff yourself, and I think you should. So anyway, Mandy is awesome. The axe Nick Cage is used in the F in the Celtic Frost logo. Yep. I think I did a piece about when Sun did shows with Celtic Frost, and I was on that little jaunt, and we actually played at Disneyland. So I can cross that off my list, playing at Disneyland with Sun. Don't know how many other people can do that. Um, let's see. Um, my vinyl collecting friend has a soundtrack to Mandy. Yeah, maybe that's one of those Mondo soundtracks. I think I have a couple of those. Um, Lillian Gish, yes, Broken Blossoms. Love that stuff.
You should ask what their favorite decade for movies is.
Okay, Jennifer has a question. What is your favorite decade for movies, you guys? I'm not sure what mine might be. I have so many movies that I love. It might just be 60s and the 70s. Just that's because that's when I was coming up, and the movies you went to see in movie theaters then were just, I guess that's the same for anybody who's coming up, though. If you're a teenager and you go and see, I don't know, what would you go and see as a teenager now? If you went to see The Witch as a teenager, you might just be, you might need therapy or something, depending on if you had helicopter parents or not. I mean, certainly some of those you know, new French extremity movies. I mean, I couldn't imagine watching that when I was like 13. People see this stuff, so
Angelina says late 20s, early 30s.
okay. Yeah, I love 20s and 30s movies. I personally own a lot of 20s and 30s movies. I own like the Joseph von Sternberg Dietrich box set, and I love gangster movies, and I love, John Ford and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
Box or something.
yeah, we went to see Pandora's Box. I mean, of course, G.W. Pabst. I mean, Louise Brooks, Diary of a Lost Girl. All that stuff is great, you know. Um,
Cool Hamburger says actually early 2000s movies.
yeah, well, there are a lot of great early 2000s movies, that's for sure. Mimi Wata, says John Schuler. I'll have to take a look at that one. Yes, Johan Johansson, um, Zach Parrish. That was a tragedy. And yeah, grist for the mill, the arts are tough. 70s, 20s, early 30s, 30s right now, pre-code era. Yeah, pre-code era is awesome. Sign of the Cross, I mean, that's great. Any of that stuff is just amazing. And of course, it's really, I mean, anything that's pre-digital stuff, where they had to make everything in the camera and do it for real. I mean, that stuff is, you know, really outrageously good. I mean, just watch the original Alien, which I got to see on its first release when I lived in LA in like 79, the Egyptian Theater. I mean, people were blown away by that movie. They thought it was amazing. I knew people that went to see it 5 times when it was playing there. I only saw it once, but um, yeah, anything that's done for real in the camera, and of course, people making movies now, um, they have that history of movies in the back of their head, and they love that stuff too. But yep, vertical hamburger. My attention span is too corroded to give older movies like that a proper watch.
Watch them in 30-minute chunks.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I mean, a lot of those movies are, they're really tight and they're well done because they basically had to hit a 90-minute window. Um, so you watch something like the original Planet of the Apes and the one with Charlton Heston, made in 68. And that movie's completely a tight movie. Incidentally, Rod Serling also wrote the screenplay for that. And the great Jerry Goldsmith did the score for it. So when you're watching that movie, I mean, there's not 1 second where you're going, okay, next, because I mean, it's moving super fast. And most movies were made like that, pre kind of, if they were going to be a long movie, they'd stick an intermission in the middle of it. And it would usually be some giant budget thing like Dr. Zhivago or Ryan's Daughter or Spartacus, something like that. And that was cool to have a break in the middle of a movie like that. Um,
Be a good one.
yeah, Treasure of Sierra Madre, Jennifer says, and that's another one of those movies. It's not, um, it goes really fast. The dialogue's impeccable. Incidentally, I think uh, Treasure of Sierra Madre is actually, I think, Buzz's favorite films because we used to talk about movies a lot. He was a huge movie fan, and on tour we would go and see movies in the afternoons if we had a chance. And we saw stuff like Lost Highway and Braveheart, and whatever was on, we would go and take a look at it, if we could do that, if we had a moment. But anyway, let's see. I'm going to start to wrap it up here a little bit.
Favorite British movies.
Okay, Dano says, what are some of your favorite British movies? Well, that's yeah, I mean, I have a lot of favorite British movies, and I am British by birth. And actually, the very first movie I ever saw, I saw at the age of 5 in the UK. And I was dropped off. This sounds crazy, but I was dropped off by my mother at the cinema in Northwood, just outside of London, where we lived. Well, we lived in Pinner, which was next to Northwood. My mother drove me up to the front of the movie theater. Uh, the movie that was playing was Hard Day's Night by the Beatles, and it was there. It was the first time it had just come out. It was the first run of it. And I had already had Little Beatles 7 inches at home that I loved. I'd already watched the Beatles on television. I think I was 5 years old. And she just opened the door and said, "Okay, get out, go over there, buy a ticket. Here's the money." And she watched me walk up and purchase a ticket, and then bye, see ya. And then the ticket seller pointed me inside. I walked inside, and somebody else pointed me further inside. And then I went inside and watched Hard Day's Night by myself. So Hard Day's Night is one of my, obviously, Richard Lester, but I love those kind of new wave of British movies like Look Back in Anger and Alfie, those kind of movies. I also love the early David Lean stuff, Great Expectations. His version of Oliver is amazing. I don't know why there's not a Blu-ray of that or a 4K of it. Maybe they're working on it. But if you've never seen a version of Oliver, story of Oliver Twist, the David Lean version is the one to watch. It's amazing. And Great Expectations is also. And then, of course, he made Lawrence of Arabia, Ryan's Daughter, Dr. Zhivago. And then, although you can go up to Guy Ritchie, that's amazing. Um, some of the stuff that he's done, movies like A Field in England. Yeah, Ben Wheatley, who I was talking about, Field in England, and also Kill List. And then Hitchcock. I mean, Hitchcock is a British filmmaker and made a lot of, his stuff is outstanding and multi-level, and you can watch it forever and um, find new things going on all the time. Also, Mike Lee. If you've never watched Mike Lee stuff, yes, the original Wicker Man is great, of course. Those guys like Terrence Fisher, those guys who are making those Hammer films, um, all those Christopher Lee Dracula movies, I love. I also love the kind of omnibus films that came out in the 70s. From Beyond the Grave and Tales from the Crypt. Those are awesome. So there's a lot. And I mean, Stanley Kubrick, okay, he's not technically British, but I mean, his movies are British movies. I mean, let's face it. He wouldn't have, if he would have stayed in the US, he wouldn't have made those movies like he made them. So,
Revolution asked what was the first movie you saw in the theater?
yeah, you probably missed when I Devolution SF. You probably missed what the first movie I saw was, but it was Hard Day's Night. I was just speaking about that a little bit. So, yep, Hammer, Naked is great. Mike Lee is awesome. I mean, that movie. Have you seen the movie I, Daniel Blake? Because I mean, that movie is just unbelievable and a quintessential British experience. Mike Lee really nails the life in Britain thing. And of course, I lived there. I moved back there in 1988 and lived there from 88 until 2000. So I was right there during a lot of the classic British 90s stuff. And I should not forget Bruce Robinson, With Nail and I, and How to Get Ahead in Advertising. I mean, With Nail and I is It's another one of those ageless films that's incredible and amazing. And I mean, Richard Griffiths in that is probably my favorite character, where he just, as a youth, I used to weep in butcher shops. I mean, that's just, it's the best, you know.
Love Tunes comment.
Out of Tune says, can't go wrong with Oliver Reed.
Love it.
Oh, let's see. Am I the only one who finds it hard to get into new movies nowadays? It's really hard to find something new that hasn't already been done in the past and has been done so much better. Well, once again, I mean, I'll point you to people like Aronofsky and Takashi Miike and Ben Whitley and Ari Aster. Um, those people are doing really interesting stuff. Robert Eggers. And okay, as far as materials concerned, it's like having a band. Let's have a band. Okay, the minute you plug in a guitar, I mean, you're done. It's like, how many people have picked one up? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? You just have to find the resonance within. So I would say give some of this stuff a chance. Once again, if you want to become a member of Letterboxd, that's where my database of things that I've watched is going to be. So I would say give it a chance. And honestly, I really didn't even give this a chance. I was like, there's nothing good that's new. And then before I knew it, I had this list of movies right just like off the top of my head. I mean, I am a movie fan also. So, and you can't judge a film by its trailer either, because a lot of these, that's the sales pitch. That's the pitch, sell, and close aspect of movie making. So you can't even tell what the hell's going on in a movie, because they're just, at some point, it's like a Hail Mary thing where they're just going, okay, let's just try and sell this now. We committed, we don't know what it is. But anyway, give stuff a chance. And I'm going to start to wrap it up now because I'm kind of on my way out on this, but this was cool. And if you guys are interested, let's maybe do a decade by decade thing on this. Now that we've covered the 21st century, we could we could just go, okay, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, and it might be a little bit more manageable, but when I was actually starting with 1920s and Letterboxd, it said there were 10,420 movies released in 1920. I just want, thankfully, they grouped them by the most popular. So that makes it a little bit more manageable. So,
Weekly or every other weekly?
so would you guys want to do this weekly, or would you want to do it every other weekly, every other weekly?
And it doesn't have to all be movie.
It doesn't always have to,
Something I don't.
obviously this doesn't always have to be movies, but yeah, decade by decade seems like a kind of thing that's manageable, but it's still, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. So in my closing today, first of all, thank you guys for coming here. And also before, I'm just going to talk about this. I don't know how many of you guys watched the video that I made about the Italian hardcore band Raw Power that I produced a couple of projects for. But the art drop for the Raw Power thing was this painting that Jennifer did of the heaviness of the ancients. And there's going to be a link below so you can get this painting, because there is only one of these paintings, and it's Atlas or some Romanesque god holding up the heaviest 4x12 in existence. So there will be a link to this so you guys can check it out. The drawing did sell already very quickly. So there will be list. I mean, there will be a link to that painting.
Put it in the comments under.
Yeah, we'll put it in the comments underneath. And today's book recommendation is going to be a dictionary of slang. And there's a bunch of versions of this. This is the 8th edition. And it is a dictionary of slang and unconventional English by Eric Partridge. I will quickly open the book and go here. And I'm on the page LU. And it says, I'm going right to lump the lighter to be transported of slang 1780 to 1875. So if something's gonna hump the lighter, that means it got transported. On the same page, there is lung, a drawbar, a can, the female bosom, as in get a load of that doll. She's got plenty of lung. So let's just leave it there. And then my listening recommendation is going to be Stockhausen. And Stockhausen wrote a series of 7 operas, only 2 of ever which got recorded. This is one of them. It's called Samstag aus Licht. And it basically means Saturday of light. And this refers to the light cycle. Start listening. This is, if you like the scores of some of these crazy movies I was talking about, this is amazing. And this is actually extremely collectible. So it might be in Spotify. You can stream it. And my movie recommendation is Derzu Uzala, which is the only movie that Kurosawa won an Academy Award for. And it's a great movie. It's Kurosawa, but it's also the only film that he filmed in Russia, and it's the only film that he actually shot in 70 millimeter. So this is an important Kurosawa film. And I think it's from maybe the 70s, 1975. And I think this company, Imprint in Australia, is the only one that has a Blu-ray of it. And I'll just read you a brief synopsis of this movie. If you don't know about it, it's one of Kurosawa's most amazing films, up there in the top 5. Synopsis is Derzu, an eccentric Mongolian frontiersman, is taken out as a guide by a Russian surveying crew. While the soldiers at first perceive him as a naive and comical relic of an uncivilized age, Derzu quickly proves himself otherwise, becoming their unlikely savior. So this is amazing. And that's all I'm going to say about it. And what I'm going to say is goodbye and thank you guys. And it's awesome. If I miss some of your comments, it's because they're going by so fast and thick. And I'm slowing. Oh, they all got read. So awesome. Okay, well, thank all of you guys. And the live stream will be up for a little bit. We haven't quite decided what our protocol is going to be on leaving them up or not, maybe for a few days, so you guys can just go back and check the recommendations on things. So thanks, and sending all you guys love. And if you haven't subscribed, please do, because it helps the channel grow. And remember to check the links, and you can also buy me a coffee, which I would totally appreciate. So see you guys later.